Hello, everyone. Matt from Soundrolling.com, and I'm here with Thomas Curley, sound mixer. How are you doing, Thomas?
Fantastic, thanks.
Do you like Thomas or do you prefer Tom? I don't know.
Tom's good.
Tom's good as well. Brilliant,
Yeah.
Tom. Okay, so you have an amazing portfolio of work already with such things as like Whiplash and stuff. So what are you currently working on?
The past couple of months, I've been doing a lot of television day playing. Shows like Scorpion, Scandal. I believe I'll be doing American Horror Story on Thursday.
Amazing.
So that's been occupying my time in the past 2 months. Prior to that, I did a feature in Venice, California with Bruce Willis and John Goodman called
Wow.
Going Under, and that should be out next year.
Amazing. It's
Yeah.
really interesting just about day playing on different shows. Is there a conversation you have before with the mixer? What does that kind of involve in terms of taking over someone just for a day?
Well, it's not taking over; it's a second unit type of thing. So usually, what happens is the show will get bogged down somehow, and they need to finish their episode in a certain amount of time. So they hire a second crew, and the main unit mixer or his boom operator will call me up and ask me if I'm available, and if I am, then we make sure that we can coincide the technical needs of the show, and usually that's an easy task nowadays because there's basically only a couple of recorders and they all do the same thing. So once that's worked out, then they put my name in the books and I show up on time.
That is very important indeed. Do you need to have in terms of like tech specs, obviously recorders are kind of, they're all standardized as well, but are you using the same the same kind of radio mics? Like what's the level of detail you need?
Well, I personally own several different boom mics at this point, Schoeps and Sennheiser mainly, and those are the popular ones here for most things. So usually I don't run into a problem where it's horribly mismatched. Lavaliers, a lot of people here use Senken COS 11s, but on this particular one, they like the DPA lavaliers. So
Do
I
you
only
find?
own.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, do you find them more popular? The DPAs, are they growing in America?
They are, yeah, and I think the only main difference is that the capsule is slightly wider, so it's a little bit more difficult to hide on some outfits, but they sound great, obviously. And yeah, I would say they're probably the second most popular in fiction. So
Fiction for the US.
yeah.
Amazing. So you don't need, so you're not going to run into any problems there. I'm just trying to get comments up and all sorts of things. So you've done like a range, a completely all sorts of different types of shows and genres and everything. I mean, it's incredible. Do you in terms of are you kind of half and half in terms of TV and film, or do you specifically try and pursue one avenue? Or
I enjoy feature work more, mostly because I haven't been hired as a main unit mixer on a long running series. I think that would be a nice way to go, just because it's a stable job, and you get to sort of be part of the family after a while, you know. But there's something nice about feature work too, in that you get a little bit of both of those things, and then after 45 days, it's done.
yeah, it's the high pressure cooker of just like, do this. You need to do this.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Both sides have, favorable parts to them, so I really like to just work as much as I can, and I think the more experiences you expose yourself to, the more you're going to be ready for something when it happens in the future. So I might as well be as ready as I can for anything.
Definitely. And do you find that I mean, personally, I find that TV and kind of films, they're kind of blurring in their kind of their makeup, and definitely in terms of the content seems to be escalating as well. How are you finding them getting more similar?
In a way, yeah. I mean, television has a bit more of a formulaic process that they have to hold to, just to maintain the integrity of their brand as a show. But I've definitely noticed in the past several years that television is becoming more cinematic. I think the technology with Area Alexa and Red cameras and things like that are making the cinematic look a lot more feasible for television, you know, and certainly the crews are seem to intermingle both worlds as well. So they bring the knowledge of, you know, cinematic lighting and camera work and all that to it, and I'm sure that contributes.
And I suppose with TV, they get the speed. They get their speed perfected.
Yeah, it's quite a sight to behold. It reminds me somewhat of a military operation at times.
I've only done a few just day plays on kind of TV over in the UK, and it is definitely just like, get it? Did you get it? No, we'll get it somewhere else. We'll find it. We'll create it. We'll.
Yeah.
Is it a similar experience over there when time is always pressing?
Absolutely, yeah. They hit the ground running and they don't stop all day.
Yeah, mad. And do you work with the same crew? Like even when you're day playing or doing your own productions, are you working with the same boom op? Do you have a range of boom ops?
I try to work with the same people most of the time. The guys that I did Whiplash with are currently doing other television shows that they've been hired on for the whole season, so I can't really compete with that. Just a day here and a day there. So I have other people that I have worked with, and fortunately in Los Angeles, there's a surplus of good people, so it's usually not hard to find somebody.
Fantastic. I mean, your work on Whiplash is amazing.
Nice.
Just in terms of the coordination and the prep behind that, like how much were you involved in terms of the pre-production?
Well, I was very involved, and that's one of the factors that you don't hear about Whiplash is the amount of prep that we did, and that was really something that made the show possible. I think the logistics involved were insane. It was a 19-day shoot.
It's mad.
Yeah, we had up to 5 cameras at one point during the finale, and yeah, the fact that we had probably 10 sound meetings before the first day of shooting, you know, it was instrumental in getting everything coordinated in a way that we could do it in that amount of time with that amount of quality, and you know, not be killing ourselves at the end of the shoot, you know.
Yeah, well, I heard even the post-production time was ridiculous to try and get it into Sundance as well.
Yeah, I think they had their final cut in 5 weeks.
That is incredible. So what were your sorry. So in terms of liaising with post-production as well, I guess they were involved a lot in terms of obviously picking up the baton. What kind of things did you have to kind of troubleshoot early on?
Well, the major problem was with starting playing instruments, stopping, and then having dialogue, and then starting again. And traditionally, with a musical piece, the actors will start singing or whatever it is, and then the music hits play, and you go through the whole number, and then you change camera angles and do it again and again. But with this, they had parts where they would play, and then they would have dialogue, and then they would play a different thing, and then have more dialogue. And so we had to work out how all that would work realistically on set. And what we came up with is that we would have our music editor on set with a Pro Tools rig, and he recorded all the pre-records in a studio, you know, with the full band and everything. And we had custom playback stems made for us on the set in between shots. Sometimes he would work. The director, also, I must say, for a first-time feature director, was completely magical. I mean, it was like he was 26 years old, I think, and it seems like he had been directing for 26 years. You know, I mean, he knew everything he wanted, how to get it, when he got it, you know, what was good, what wasn't good. It was amazing. And the amount of just coordination that was going on in this kid's head was unreal. And I really have to give a lot of kudos to him for handling that much pressure and all that with elegance. You know, it just made it a joy to watch everything come together. And so he knew every note that was being played, and he would coordinate with our music editor to get us those playback stems. And then it was really, you know, hitting the marks. Whenever Fletcher would do his little finger move, we knew that was, you know, get ready time, and my playback operator would be right there with the button.
Nice.
So, yeah, it worked out really nice. And you know, there were mistakes occasionally, you know, and we'd work around them and tighten it up. And you know, that's how the film process works, especially with complicated stuff like that. But you know, we got by the last day we had our rhythm.
Nice.
You know?
It's always the way on the last day, at least, and the first day is always something's got to go wrong somewhere. Yeah. That's what I always find. It's just got to happen. And so I guess like once you were in it, is like because of the turnaround and everything. I mean, given the odd like needing to retake, was everyone just kind of like lasered in? Was there much kind of relaxing time, or was it just like go, we're just gonna commit 19 days?
No, there was really no time to mess around. And I think everybody was aware of that because it seemed to move pretty smoothly. And our assistant directing team was really instrumental in that too. Nick Harvard is the assistant director, and he was somebody that I've worked with several times in the past. When it comes to logistics, he's a wizard. He's done tons of cool stuff in the past. Like he did second unit, all the explosives for Hurt Locker.
Right. Wow. Yeah.
You can imagine how harrowing that would be.
God.
And so he was really good at you know, running the set and setting up you know, what's next and what's next after that and all that. So you know, it was really as far as collaborative efforts go, it was one of the most amazing things I've seen in my career. Everybody was really just firing on all cylinders, and I think that it was necessary because it wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think it was down to any particular thing? Was it just everyone was just focused on the goal, or everyone was just, it just happened to be that amalgamation? Because so often you can get a lot of different people. I don't know if you knew anyone who was on the crew already, or was everyone hired and fresh? Or do you want, if you just say more about that?
Yeah, well, I think the thing that really gelled everybody together was the script was incredible. I've read hundreds of scripts in my career, and this was the first one where, as I was turning the pages, my heart was just pounding because the intensity of the story is right there on the page. And I think everybody that read it knew that it was going to be something special as long as they held their end of the bargain up. And as far as working with people that I'd known before, my personal sound crew I had worked with several times before. And the assistant director, Nick Harvard, I had worked with several times before. As far as I mean, there was a couple other people in Los Angeles. I mean, it's a big crowd of filmmakers, but it's also a small crowd. You tend to run into people here and there that you know on just about every set. So I knew a couple of the camera operators and I think the dolly grip and stuff like that. So it's always fun to see people that from other shows, and sort of makes it like a little more comfortable of a situation.
Definitely, yeah.
And yeah, that's all.
Yeah, just in terms of just getting in sync and just already kind of knowing. I know, especially when I work with DPs a lot, just kind of their style of shooting, or especially it's always good for like guessing how long they're going to be when they say, what is their 5 minutes, or what is their 10 minutes, or what is their...
Sure.
It's really interesting. So what kind of equipment did you run on Whiplash, or what's your main setup now?
It's basically the same. Sound device is 788T, and as the recorder, and I got the I bought the CL9 controller to use on Whiplash, because I wanted to do a proper mix for that, and I had used a Sonosax mixer before that, but I changed to the CL9. Mostly for the workflow is pretty elegant with the traditional analog mixer. You can send a mix to a separate recorder, but you cannot control the mix within the 788T. You can only send ISO tracks to it, and then maybe do like an auto mix or something if you wanted to turn that in. But otherwise, you need a separate recorder to do an actual mix. And I didn't like that. I didn't like the idea that it adding more machines into the process, I think, is a recipe for something else to go wrong, or I could forget to push a button somewhere, and
definitely.
And also the powering situation with the CL9 controller runs off of the power of the 788T. So I wouldn't have to worry about having a separate battery issue possibly, or, if the batteries in the mixer die, then, I would need to make sure that I had it plugged into external power, or, all of those are things that I think about in terms of keeping my team running all the time. It's comes from a television broadcast background that I have, where on live television you need to make sure that everything works all the time, and if something happens, you have a backup plan that can be implemented immediately. So that's something that I weighed heavily into when I was building my kit, and I decided to go with CL9 for those purposes. I've used Lectrosonics wireless my whole career, and for Whiplash, I purchased a Octo Pack, which is
nice.
It's a really neat kit, because it gives you the power of 8 wireless and multi-coupler and powered antennas, and it has redundant battery backups, and it's also all that power is small enough to fit into a bag too if you need 8 channels to run around with. And so I've been using that for over a year now, and I love it. And I have a combination of SMQV transmitters and SMQ transmitters, which are the smaller ones. So if I need to hide one, I usually use those. But I like using those because they have the optional 250 milliwatt power. And that's come in handy in a number of ways. If it's a difficult location with crowded RF, you can power through that. If it's a weird house that's full of wire mesh for some reason, you can power through that. Or if you're doing a crazy long distance shot where somebody's running down the street with dialogue the whole time, you can usually handle that too without any dropouts. So
it's just a dream for us over in the UK, stuck with 50.
Right. Yeah. We might be catching up with you. There seems to be more and more regulations and less frequencies that are being allowed for us these days. So I feel your pain.
Well, yeah, it's everyone on these, isn't it? They're 4G and streaming their whole life through their phone while they live stream themselves. I don't know. It's getting a bit crazy. But it's just annoying that they move it around. It's like, can't you sell off another? You have so many TV channels. Come on, no one's watching TV. Just make it all internet or something.
Well, that's the problem with capitalism. They want it all.
There you go. Yeah, sell it and resell it. No, mad. And so, what was your team on Whiplash? A boom op and a utility, or?
Yeah, that's the standard.
Standard setup.
We're unionized here, and so they require a boom operator and a utility. My boom operator was David Stark, and my utility was Michael O'Heaney. And those are two guys I prefer to work with these days. But like I said, they're both on other shows right now.
No, brilliant. Oh no, go on.
The music editor was I'm blanking on his name right now. I apologize.
No, that's all right. Let's see. And so with your so when you're working, I know all the departments have kind of very, very set roles, but what's a typical day when you get in? Like what's your first thing you do? I assume your cart is already there, or your kit is already placed somewhere by your utility. So what's the first thing that you're doing?
Well, generally speaking, I would, if I hadn't been to the location before, I would look around and try and find potential problems, noisy electrical gadgets, or windows that are left open to the street or anything like that. And once I've had a cup of coffee, I'll start looking at the sides for the day and seeing what potential issues we might have there, if a character is taking off a shirt in the middle of a scene or something. And then the AD will have a safety meeting, and they'll usually spend about 5 minutes going through what our day is, and then everybody quickly gets to work on lighting the first shot.
Fantastic. And your relationship with the director, is that, I mean, have you already, I presume with something like Whiplash, you've already gone through all the kind of scenarios and you're just kind of ticking things off. Is there any need to kind of interact with the director apart from the coffee, obviously?
Yeah, well, we had it's commonplace to have at least one full production meeting before the shoot where we can ask general questions and sort of get the lay of the land. And then on set, as long as there's no problems, the directors have headsets and they can hear, and I'll come up every once in a while and give a thumbs up, or sometimes it's even just a look over from the cart to the video village, and if everything's happy, they're just staring at the screen and
eating their popcorn.
Yeah, well, I hope not. That might be noisy. But, anyhow, yeah. So as long as things are fine, then there's no need for much dialogue. But if they're not hearing, if they're hearing something they don't like, or if we're running into an issue, then we would have a little short meeting, and if another department is involved, we bring that person in and see what we can do really to fix it. And most of the time there's a workaround that will be copacetic for everybody, but sometimes sound just gets boned, and at that point we say, well, I've done all I can do for you, and this is what's going to happen. You can ADR it, and that'll cost money later, or we can change things here and try and fix it. And ultimately, that's their choice. So
definitely, and it all goes in the sound report as a
right, exactly,
as the little black book. Brilliant. Do you ever get more and more? There's just stories in the UK about actors' intelligibility and kind of deliverance of lines. Are you often asked to kind of pick up on that, or kind of just comment generally on the actual kind of, not diction, but intelligibility of an actor?
Yeah, I have had that issue in the past, and it becomes kind of a sensitive thing too, especially if it's a lead character. If it's a day player or something, then we can yell at them and
exactly.
They can cry themselves to sleep later or something. But if it's the main actor, then you really have to be careful to not make them angry or uncomfortable or whatever. So generally, I'll tell the director what's happening, and they can try and work their director magic in that regard. And if it's still going on, I'll tell the producer what's happening and tell them that it might be a potential financial issue if they keep doing this.
Right.
And generally after the third strike, then there's, I'm not going to flip out and make a scene.
Yeah.
As frustrating as it can be, I'm just there to record what's happening. So
that is what's happening. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, it's always just really interesting, because I've been told about it before, but I never thought about going to the producer. Actually, it's a very interesting point, because it will be a financial implication later on.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just something to work out, isn't it? There's so many variables.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a crafts person. I'm a filmmaker and all of those things, but at the end of the day, I'm hired help, and I'm making a product for somebody who's paying for it. So I have to make sure that they're happy first, and everyone else comes after that. They're signing the check. So
it's a very important point, because a lot of the stigma of just like the really angry sound guy, I think that I don't know why that's held on, to be honest. There must be a few people just doing bad stuff out there, but I'm generally of the thing as well of like, okay, you've made the decision. It's not I've done all I can, and just write it in the notes and send it on.
Yeah. So. And I understand. I mean, I've met several, grumpy sound mixers, and it seems like it's something that develops over a 30-year career of just being told no.
Yeah, no, that'll definitely do it to you. Yeah.
And,
oh dear.
And I understand, I understand to a degree where that can come from, because I've had frustrating times on set as well. But I try and have the perspective of, well, I could be crammed into some cubicle, pushing
being told no there.
Just have a normal daily job, and that makes me cringe. So I'm happy doing what I'm doing, and actually that was something that I was looking for when I was searching for my career, as well as I got a very good piece of advice early on, was you're going to be working 12 to 14 hours a day every day, so you better find something that you enjoy.
Very true.
Otherwise you'll go mad.
It's very, very true. Oh dear. It's I've completely lost my trail of thought as well, just laughing at that. It's completely gone. Oh no. Wait. No, it'll probably come back in a few days' time, and it'll be very annoying.
I can talk about how I got started if you want.
Definitely. That is a good place to start.
Okay. Well, I guess the earliest bit would be that I started making videos in high school with a friend of mine. I found out that our school had a extracurricular program where you could rent out VHS video cameras, and they had an editing machine there that we could cut tape to tape and do simple stuff like that. And I had great fun doing that. And once I decided that mechanical engineering was not my career path, I went to film school. And during film school, I got a job as a broadcast engineer at a local television station, and that gave me some of my first professional exposure to the tech side of things, and continued working on little student films and things until after I graduated, I started getting PA jobs on or production assistant jobs on different films around New York State. And one of the last ones that I worked on was The Time Machine, which was the DreamWorks picture with Jeremy Irons and the lead character was the guy in Memento, who I can't remember right now.
Oh,
Guy Pearce.
Guy Pearce, yeah.
And so I was a set PA on that. They filmed the exteriors in Albany, New York, which was my hometown, because it looked like New York City circa 1895. They still have all those old buildings and cobblestone streets and such. So the big Hollywood crew came out to our little town, and as a set PA, I met their mixer, who was David McMillan. And he's amazing. He's a veteran. I think he won his first Oscar for the Right Stuff.
Oh wow!
And he also won one for Apollo 13. And he's mixed some of the most iconic films you can imagine: Point Break, 40-Year-Old Virgin, like just all kinds of stuff, And he just retired recently, but he's one of the most friendly, gracious people that I've ever met on set. And he was over 30 years into his career at that point, and still had exuberance and looked at every day as a new challenge, and just
amazing.
Had an awesome attitude, and that was really what swung me over to wanting to do sound professionally. And so after I worked with him for 3 weeks on that film, I started saving money to move to Los Angeles, and reading everything I could about production sound. And so at the end of 2001, I moved to LA and started trying to do it. And I had no gear. I didn't know anybody. But fortunately, I did move to an apartment that was around the corner from the American Film Institute.
Wow.
Which is one of the premier graduate schools out here. And their students, they don't have a sound department at that school. So the students have to hire out all of their sound people. And I was right around the corner, so I started doing a lot of their stuff. And I would say 75% of the people there are in it for the career. So, I made a lot of good relationships there, and that helped me get my early career off the ground.
Fantastic. It's kind of similar to me in a way, in terms of I had to move to London and to try and, because all the work's here, but I actually spent about a year and a half, and my parents had moved up to Scotland. So I was actually taking the bus, and one way was 11 hours to get to London to get in the morning, and then I'd do my shoot, and then hopefully sleep over on a sofa or something if it was like back-to-back shoots, and then from there build up. But it was a similar thing in terms of the kind of the more prestigious, let's say, film schools around London, just getting involved in all of their projects as well, because they're already forking out so much for their their film school time that it was good to have a high turnover of stuff. Did you find it important just to have that initial burst of just trying to do as many things as possible, just to get yourself kind of grounded in a routine?
Yeah, and and also it's I mean, it's a very social world to be a freelance contractor. So I think it's, you know, the more people you know, the more chances you'll have at landing another gig. Um, and also there's many different personalities in this world as well. So, you know, I find that there's some people that are in it for the wrong reasons, or that are kind of exploitative, or exploitative. Yeah. Um, and so it's good to like have a broad Rolodex, so you can know who to avoid and know who to gravitate towards. And
yeah. And that just doesn't go for the sound people. That's everyone in general.
oh yeah,
I'd say, yeah.
directors, camera, all those, yeah. And nowadays, I mean, a lot of times when I'm interviewing for a gig, I'll ask them who's on board, just so I can, you know, if I know the person, I'll already have an idea of how it's going to go.
See, very good, very good. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for having a chat. I do want to let you get off early, just in case you have to pack anything or do anything.
Oh, I appreciate it.
But I guess I'll leave you with the final words, just of any kind of advice, because a lot of this is kind of aimed at kind of people starting out, or in their they're in at least their early part of their career, in terms of a couple of years in. I don't know if you have any kind of thoughts of advice of I'm particularly interested in just that point in the career where you're kind of you're competent, but you want to try and push yourself to the next level, and kind of what it takes to be able to do that.
Sure. Well, I would say if you don't have a mentor, seek out a mentor, somebody who's a veteran in your specific skill, and you know, be that person's best friend. Soak up as much knowledge as you can from them, and as far as I would say, as far as equipment goes, good microphones first. You know, you can record on a Zoom or something cheap. You know, as long as you have a good microphone going into it, it's going to sound better. And try not to get frustrated when things don't go your way for a little while, because it'll happen. You know, I've had times where I didn't work for weeks or months at a time, and you know, you wonder what you did wrong, but it's just part of the game. You just got to hang in there.
No, fantastic. That's really useful, actually, in terms of, especially you get I personally get used to the seasonality of, like, January is always a bit slower, and although it still becomes really hard to try and save for those moments, because you have like Christmas beforehand and stuff. So you spend all your money, and then you get paid late, and then you get paid in March for stuff you did in January, and then it's all a bit of a roller coaster every year at the start, and then just as you get settled, it's all over the place again.
And I guess at a certain point too, one of the hardest things for me was sticking up for my rate.
Yeah, a very prominent topic.
Yeah, you've got to learn to stand your ground, and if a person's lowballing you and they won't change their mind, if you can't convince them, then you don't really need that person in your life anyway. So, you know, it's a tough choice to make, but at some point, you've got to stand up for yourself, and that's the only way really to advance. So,
no, definitely, it's a brilliant way to end. So, thank you very much, Tom, just for your time and coming on board. And
it's my pleasure.
Thanks for the people that are watching as well. And yeah, hopefully, the idea with these is to come back at some point and just have a kind of another crack at it, as it were, just for a kind of update on what people are doing, just to, again, essentially build lots of little mentoring resources just for people. So, because again, everyone's different, and so you'll gravitate towards different people and how different people work and stuff. So,
sure.
So yeah,
well, I hope I have something good for you next time.
Yeah, indeed. So I will give you a round of applause. and and yeah, and just say that anyone can find this video. You're probably already watching the replay, maybe, on soundrolling.com. And I'll leave Tom to say the final goodbye.
All right. So long, and I'll see you on the next one.